Danica Lorer, and this is Lit Happens, your celebration of the literary arts here in Saskatchewan. Today I'm very pleased to welcome Mary Maxwell. Mary is a Saskatoon-based writer. She has published in numerous literary magazines, and I've recently become familiar with her short stories. Today we're here to talk about her new book of poetry, Wind Leaves Absence. This collection was nominated for a Saskatchewan Book Award in the first book category. Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danica. Nice to be here.
Well, let's start with just a little bit of your background. Tell me what put you on this journey. Have you always been a writer?
I've always been interested in stories, and I've always been interested in literature. I've been writing for a long time, since I was a young woman. So yes, what put me on this journey? I think I know what happened, the premature loss of two brothers in my family prompted an exploration of trying to make some sense of what happened. And so I started writing letters to them, and because I felt like there was a lot of unfinished business with them. And that started me writing a series of letters and poems and stories about their lives. So that's where this book came from.
And so where did the shift happen from letter to poem? Do you see a space where that actually changed and happened?
I think the shift happened actually when my father was diagnosed with dementia, and I started going to see him in Victoria, and when I would come back, it just seemed like instead of letters, because he was actually a living presence, I started writing poems about the mysterious process of dementia, and that's where the poems came. And then more poems came, and they were to do with my brothers. So it was all an exploration of loss. The first about sudden loss, and the second I was able to witness the slow dying of my father, and the many losses that come with dementia, as most people will recognize.
And grief isn't an easy subject to put into a book. I know it's something that we will often journal about, but it must have been a challenging subject to work through.
Indeed, it was a challenging subject. The book is about the business of endings, and I don't know if we pay enough attention to the business of endings in our society. And it was my attempt to look at some of those endings and explore how we can do this in a better way. And I think that I don't want to make generalizations of how everyone can do it, but the process of writing about it really helped me go into that dark place. It is difficult to write about grief because everyone has an individual process, an individual journey, and it is people are uncomfortable with it, but I believe that grief is with all of us every day. We see it on the news. We see people losing their homes in Houston. We see the fear that people live with. There is loss. There's loss of innocence. There's loss of loved ones, and I wanted this book. I wanted my work to contribute to the whole conversation about grief and loss, because it doesn't seem to be a very popular one, and I have become familiar with it enough that I wanted to write about it and at least go down that road a little ways and explore it. So yeah, it's been a challenge.
And they're narrative poems. They tell us a story. And I think in doing that, like you were saying, there's something universal about those feelings, about that human condition that really connects us.
That's right. I very much believe that we all have a deep connection if we start to talk about our stories and our experiences about grief. And I think that, that's been my experience. Is when I do readings, I often pair it with a grief workshop, using river stones as a metaphor about, or as a metaphor that represents the weight of grief that we all carry. And what happens is when people start to explore that, they end up writing their own poems about their own losses and grief. And that's been very satisfying and a lot of intimacy that comes up in these follow-up workshops, because people go into that place, sometimes a dark place, but end up with more understanding. And it is a universal experience, and we are connected by our willingness to become honest and forthright in what it is we're feeling.
And I suppose that's sort of part of the way how you found the audience for this book.
Yes, the audience is, it's difficult to define the audience. I think that some of the places that I've read in Calgary and Saskatoon have been, and in smaller places, have been through church organizations and invitations that have come from the pastoral visiting committees, because they wanted me to come and explore grief. People are, it was like a direction or a forum that they provided for that. Otherwise, it's not, poems about grief are not crowd pleasers. You know, they're not usually funny, although there have been some absurd moments, there's no doubt about that. But they are more serious, and so they have to find, this kind of work has to find its right forum, for sure.
And there is an element of religion in the poems as well.
Loss of faith, search for faith. What does faith mean? What do I believe in now? All the questions that seem to arise when something like this happens to people. It certainly, they were the questions that I had to explore and go into a place of looking at what was going on in my own belief system, and whether or not I could regain some of the groundedness that I had when I was younger. So yes, I think it is a challenge of faith in many ways for many people.
And how have people responded to the book?
Well, I've had good response to the book. I've had people have written me letters, long letters about their own experiences. People have sent me emails and phone calls. I've had phone calls. The book has done quite well, and I think the evidence of these grief workshops that have been paired with the readings has led me to believe that it is an important part of the conversation, and it gives people an invitation to explore their own grief in a way that they may not have thought about before.
Well, and more about making connections in such a wonderful way.
That's right. I've really been so honored in that way of people telling me their stories and sharing with me their memories and some of the experiences that they have had. It's been a very growth-enhancing experience for me.
And so, are you writing something? Are you still on that path of writing with grief, or are you working on something different now?
I'm actually working on something different. I took Guy Vanderhaeg's class this spring, and my stories, I'm starting to write stories again, and I've got quite a bank of stories now that I'm writing, and I'm finding that there's a lot of humor and fun in them. There's always this undercurrent of darkness in them, which is fine, but it's been fun, and I'm ready to move on.
Well, thank you, Mary, and that's all we have time for today. Okay. Our time goes by so quickly.
Thank you, Danica. It's been a pleasure.
I'm Danica Lorer, and you've been watching Lit Happens. You can find past episodes by going to Shaw TV Saskatoon on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook, or you can email me at danicalorer@gmail.com. Thank you for watching.